Well, good morning. If you're joining us live, if you're watching on the replay, we want to welcome you and we really appreciate you joining us today on the CVC Success Live Show today. Now, today, Cheryl and I are going to be your host, and we have two very special guests. Both of these gentlemen we have relied on as coaches, as mentors, and many other things, and also as dear friends over the last few years since we originally met them. And both of these gentlemen have expertise in specific areas that Cheryl and I feel are probably can solve many of the problems you have if you're ready to take action and go towards them. So, our two guests today, one is a gentleman by the name of Randy Pennington. And Randy has authored quite a few books. The leading one in my mind is the book Results Rule. And that's what we're going to talk about today is how to get results. Randy has also been voted as a Hall of Fame speaker by the National Speakers Association. It's a very high honor because that's when the people that are doing the same thing you are vote you into this honor. Now, our other guest today is also a very good friend, coach, mentor, just like Randy has been, and his name is Scott McKain. And Scott is an author. He's also a Hall of Fame speaker, also, and his specialty is something called distinction and how being a distinctive company may just be your answer. Randy is an expert in the area of culture. Both of these gentlemen are guys that Fortune 500 companies, not only in the U.S. but abroad, call on for their expertise. So, Randy, I'm going to go to you first this morning. You have often said, and I'm going to quote you, that culture always wins. And when it comes down to culture, Randy, you're the man. As far as I know of no one who exceeds your expertise in how to build a culture. So, can you tell us why culture always wins?
Thanks, Jerry. First off, good morning. Hello to Cheryl and you. Thanks for having me on the show. Always good to be with my buddy Scott. Um, Here's what I was thinking about this morning. See if this holds true. Imagine you are a 4-star or a 5-star high school football player, and you're looking at a college you're going to go to. You have your choice of anywhere. And I'll just pick 3 out of the top 4 um, schools that were in the playoffs this year for the NCAA football championship: Alabama, Georgia, and Cincinnati. All 3 wonderful teams, all 3 wonderful programs. Which one are you going to go to? My guess is probably most people, if you had a choice and knew you were going to go there and start, would say, I want to go to Georgia. I want to go to Alabama. A few people go, yeah, I might go to Florida or Auburn just to shake it up a little bit. But the point is why would you choose to go to those places? It's because they have winning programs. You know that if you go there, you're going to have people, you're going to have great facilities, a great culture, if you will, with great coaches who are absolutely committed to helping you play your best. Now, it's not that Cincinnati doesn't have those things, but if you ask on the surface who it is, I think it comes down to those places have invested in a culture of winning and a culture of excellence that over time perpetuates itself. So when I say the culture always wins, first off, we ought to define culture. I think of it now as the habits that you display every day that determine what you really believe about people and performance and professionalism. Doesn't matter what your SOP says, doesn't matter what your marketing material says. It matters what the results are, and it's the habits that you build as a leader. I think that culture is sort of the holy grail of having a successful company. So,
Yeah. And Randy, culture is kind of like this buzzword, this byword that's come up in the last few years. You never heard of it before. But in today's world, this is what happens. I've often heard you say about Southwest Airlines, and you're often quoting Southwest and the president or chairman of Southwest. But one of the things that draws people there is the Southwest culture. Am I correct?
absolutely. Yeah. Now, they don't describe it as the Southwest culture. I mean, nobody goes and books on Southwest Airlines and goes, well, I'm booking them because it's a Southwest culture. They book them because it's a convenient flight that's safe and it's friendly. And this ties into what Scott really is an expert in and gets it, is they create a great experience for their customer. Now, what drives that great experience is the culture of the organization. But a customer doesn't say, I'm going to go to Southwest because they're have a great culture. They go because I can fly, it's cheap, my bag's check free, all those things. And that's where they come together. Now, so think of it this way. Your website has to have something about your culture on it today. And it's got to show it, not tell it. But your customers aren't going to say, wow, I'm going to probably buy this because of their culture. Your customers are going to say, I'm going to buy this because of the experience and the value that I get. And the culture is what drives that.
Yeah. And one of the things is Southwest has a waiting list of people that are begging to go to work for Southwest Airlines. So Scott, let's switch over to you a minute. Your big area of expertise is distinction. You've written books about this, iconic other books, but distinction, that's one of the things that makes people stand out. And just like we were calling about Southwest Airlines, it's a very distinctive company. Whenever you look at other at low cost, like the Sprint Airlines, the others that don't have, what are they known for? They're known for being late. They're known for sorry service. What are they known for? So what do you mean by a distinctive company? We're reaching out to home service contractors that provide services for American homeowners. How do they become distinct, Scott?
Well, I think it begins, Jerry, with them asking the question, why would a customer choose us instead of the competition? I mean, why would any customer choose you as opposed to all of the other myriad of options in the home services marketplace in your respective communities? And if they can't answer that question, then they better have a cheaper price. And which, by the way, is the worst place for their business to be, is the one with the cheapest price. So I think most haven't even thought of that. I mean, they're out there talking about what they do and how they do it, and they're saying the same doggone things that their competition is. So from the customer's perspective and from the prospective employee's perspective, there's no compelling reason to choose you. And I think that's new in many ways for these entrepreneurs. They haven't had to think about that before. I did a series of programs a while back for a national chain association of body shop owners, auto repair shops. And I said, how many of you got into this business because you love dealing with customers? Raise your hand. Well, nobody raised their hand. They got in the business because they loved working on cars. And therefore, cars is what they thought of. Now, don't get me wrong. You've got to fix the car right the first time. But if you're not thinking about why a customer would choose you instead of another repair shop, if you're not thinking about why an employee would rather work for you as opposed to other repair shops, what are you doing to stand out in your marketplace? And so distinction means that you stand above your competition. One of the phrases we've trademarked is stand out, earn more. And when you stand out, you do earn more. But it's not just more profit. It's more quality employees. It's more customer retention. It's more of the kind of things that Randy was talking about in terms of why would people select you? And when you stand out, the only way you can stand out, and that's where Randy and my message, I think, is so well synced. You can't have a rotten culture and stand out unless you're putting the stink in distinction. You're not going to be able to do that, right? So that's why what we're talking about and our respective messages, although different, blend so well. And why it's so important that folks in the home service business get this, because the world is different. I mean, we were talking right before we went on. I mean, if you're looking for a prospective employee, it used to be your competition was other home services businesses. Now you're competing with Chick-fil-A. You're competing with McDonald's. They're paying better wages in some cases than you are. Well, it's an incredibly challenging time. And look at the way the business is going. A lot of folks in this business have more opportunity than they know what to do with. So how are you going to do that unless you become attractive not only to customers, but also to potential employees?
So what I heard you say is you can't stink. Would that be true?
You can't. Yeah. I mean, here's the funny thing. But the biggest selling business book of all time is Good to Great. And in Good to Great, the author said there were 11 great companies in the world. Go back and look at who they are. 10 of the 11 are no longer great. That's how rapidly the world is changing. That in the biggest selling business book of all time, he said the model of retail was Circuit City. They're not even in business anymore. So what we have to understand is the world is changing so dramatically that if you're not changing, if I went to your customers right now and said, how is this business doing business with you, Mr. or Ms. Customer, better and different than they did a year ago? What would their answer be? And if they can't tell me something that you're doing better than you did a year ago or differently improved than you did a year ago, then you're not keeping up. You're left behind in the dust.
You're left behind. And Scott, your words bring me, I got a book the other day. It's called The Illustrated History of Business in the United States. And it goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War in the 18th century and the first corporations that were established in America. And then it's got it broke down per decade. And where you watch these companies that were on the top that became the bottom. I know one example I often use is Sears Roebuck. That if Sears Roebuck had reinvented itself, because that's what we're talking about here, if they had reinvented themselves, Sears Roebuck would be Amazon today. But they were still hung up in the way they did business, which worked in the 1930s. It worked in the 1960s. All four of us grew up getting our Christmas presents. We picked them out of a Sears Roebuck catalog. And it was the way of doing business till some guy named Bezos opened up Amazon and totally changed the way retail is done in America. So Cheryl, one of our issues here with the people we cater to is hiring. Would you agree with that assessment that that's probably the number one challenge of the home service contractor today? It's probably the most challenging thing they face. Do you agree?
Right. At this point, it is. And part of it's because, the people, as Scott said, there's so many other companies out there that are hiring at an astronomical amount compared to what they used to. And finding good qualified employees is getting harder and harder. Plus, we had the pandemic, we had the Great Resignation, and as Randy has trademarked, this is the new normal. And there's nothing normal about it at this point. And the hiring process is getting harder and harder every day. We have more jobs available, but less people willing to fill the seats.
Yeah. And we're going through a period of record resignations. And research tells us something else. Many people today are quitting their jobs without having a job to go to. Randy, I'm going to take this one back to you because a while back you wrote an article and it was about the Great Resignation and people are quitting and resigning their job. And you said the reason they're resigning is because they can. Can you reinforce that? Because they can? Why are they doing this, Randy?
Well, first off, people do things for their reasons, not ours. So they're all doing it for some people are doing it because they are fearful. Some people are doing it because they're stressed and burned out, although fewer than those than we think, but there are those. There are a few that say, gee, I've got childcare issues, all those things that are there. But the ones that are leaving to go to work someplace else, even if they don't have a job, they know there's a job. Everybody knows there's a job. And so what I've started, and I've been telling my clients this for years, we actually did some work with a group a few years back, and the CEO came to us and said, I want to know why my employees are leaving. I said, no, really what you want to know is why they're looking. Because they always look before they leave. And I think that's true for everybody. That, even if they don't go to the ads, they're at least talking to a friend, they're driving down the street, they're talking to the people at the bowling alley or at church or whatever else, and they're saying, hey, what's going on? We're hiring like crazy. They're paying, hey, if you come to work at my place, they're going to give me a $500 bonus, I'll split it with you. So everybody's out there, and so they're leaving because they can. And there is a demographic shift that's going on. 1.5 million baby boomers retired earlier than everybody anticipated during the pandemic. Now, obviously none of us, but 1.5 did. 30% of women, according to one study I read, are not going back into the workplace because of childcare issues or whatever, or having to deal with family. Those are numbers that are driving shortages. And you might not think, well, gee, that doesn't affect me in the home services business. Well, I don't know. It might, because when those people leave, the people who work for you now have other jobs they can slot themselves into. And so, I think they're leaving because they can. It is, it doesn't matter what the federal government says the minimum wage is. The minimum wage is whatever it takes to hire people in your marketplace. And that's just the way it is. Now, interestingly enough, and I'll share this one story. I've got this one guy in the home services industry. I'm not going to tell who it is, but we all know this person. And he came to me about a year and a half ago even, and said, I can't find people. I can't find good applicants. And I said, so what are you doing? He said, I'm paying lots of overtime to cover the work. I said, why don't you raise your salaries? And he raised his salaries by 15% higher than everybody else in the marketplace. Now, a couple of things happened. First off, 15% was enough to get everybody's attention. And now he has more good candidates that he can choose from. Then, if you can manage those people well, because they know they're making 15% more, you can maintain the productivity. What ends up happening is he's actually saving money because he's getting better service, fewer reworks, and less overtime. And he's actually saving money. So again, part of the culture, if you will, is this notion of our employees are our partners in success.
Gotcha.
And so if you believe that, how do you treat a partner? If you really are trying to treat them well. So I think it does go back into how you hire people. But it's going to be that way. I mean, it's going to be, demographics are showing another year or two minimum before the employment starts to even up a little bit.
Right. And on the people that we are going to, which is the home service industry, we're predicted to rise in demand over 18% in this year. According to statistics you shared with me, Randy, what you're doing is what your demand is going to go up over 18%. And it's like I had a conversation with the sales manager of a local Ford dealership this morning because one of my clients is trying to locate trucks. And what he's doing is saying, Jerry, I wish we could help you. And hopefully this supply issue, because that's some of the things, just simply finding trucks right now to run business is at a premium. People are flying across the country just to buy a vehicle and drive it home. So Scott, let me take this question to you. You are well known abroad. You actually have spent a lot of time working with Volkswagen of Australia. You used to fly out to Australia before COVID hit, which made a big change in Scott's business. I mean, your business model changed when COVID came in, the entire speaking industry that you're involved into. So let's identify this. How well does Scott McKain understand the plight of the home service contractor in today's world?
Well, I would hope fairly well. I think some of the challenges that Randy eloquently illuminated for us apply to all businesses. It's not confined to the home services business. You know, we have 4 employees, and you know, if they're driving to work, seeing signs as they drive in that says now hiring $18 an hour, you know, the world knows what people are paying, and at the end of the day, you know, you can either be distinct or extinct. And I chose to be distinct. I mean, if you don't, you go out of business. And so I've realized, and I think Randy's in the same boat. I know you guys are as well. The old model didn't work, and it wasn't just, and that's where Randy's leadership on this has been so important. It's It's not, as Randy says, the new normal, it's the new next, right? I mean, it really is moving to, hey, look, I may not like the way it is, but I could sit here and not like it and go under, or I could just say, hey, I got to put on my big boy pants and get out there and face the world as it is. And that's the challenge for all of us. I grew up in a little grocery store in rural Southern Indiana. I mean, my folks were entrepreneurs with a tiny little grocery store. And, the key for Dad back then was hiring and managing the right people, because the only way that you compete with a big box competition was to deliver a better experience. I mean, the big box was always going to be able to charge less for a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread than we were. So you've got to deliver an experience that is superior. That's how you compete. So I saw that as a kid growing up. I see it in my own business now. And look, just because we're saying this is, what the market is, or what it doesn't mean that we think it's the most wonderful thing or that we want to do it. But at the end of the day, what else can you do? This is the way that it is now. And we can either accept it and deal with it and thrive during it, or we can complain and moan as the competition eats our lunch. That's our two choices. I mean, that's really it right there. So we either learn how to become distinctive, and we learn how to create the kind of culture that will attract and retain great employees and customers, or we continue to fight and complain and moan our way into the grave, literally, either individually or organizationally.
Right. And Scott, if we take it back into early 2020, both you and myself, Randy, Cheryl, we all went through this massive change because of COVID. Yep. And you and I actually attended the same events at that time virtually to learn how to do what we do with a virtual mode. We have both established at this point recording studios, live streaming studios. And, this was the amazing thing that you shared with me, Scott. When you went through these changes, you were pretty happy with where you were at in this world. Do you remember that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, what happens is you learn a new skill and you kind of fight. Do I need to learn this? Gosh, what was the right? And that's the other thing is when we change, it doesn't mean that what we were doing in the past was wrong. I think that's part of our problem is when people want us to change, we think they're implying that what we have been doing is wrong. And that's one of the things that, Jerry, you and I have talked about, and I've tried to stress, is it was probably the exact correct thing to be doing in that particular situation, in that particular marketplace, in that specific economy. What we have to do then is to have strategies that work today, that work now. You can't make it today by working harder on your old plan. You've got to be able to create your new way of approaching the business in the new marketplace and the realities that we're all facing. And, one of the funny things that happened is, as you alluded to, Jerry, is the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it. And the more I ended up going, wow, this is, I would never have done it had it not been for the change in the market because of the pandemic.
Gotcha. So, Randy, let me ask you this. I believe that in order to sell to a customer, you have to understand that customer. You have to understand their behavior patterns, their wants, their needs, and everything else. I also believe this is vastly true. In order to manage and operate a company, you've got to understand the thoughts, the processes, everything of the people that work for you. In other words, if you don't understand them, how can you lead them? Would you agree with that, with your background, Randy?
Oh, absolutely, Jerry. I see it all the time, and I was listening to Scott, and even though I've heard Scott talk about his dad's grocery, I don't know how many times, Scott, we talked about that.
Many million
times. I want to go back to, because as Scott was talking about that, I was remembering my own upbringing. I'm the son of a diesel truck mechanic. And so one of the things that I think, and I grew up, my dad for a while had his own garage, and he almost killed himself, literally, trying to keep up with the demand of that garage because he couldn't find good people. And so part of it is how you understand people. And absolutely, you've got to be able to, if you're going to connect with followers And here's one thing that has changed. I remember when we all came into the workplace, I remember somebody saying, I can't believe you young whippersnappers, you want to be here. You've only been here 2 years and you want a promotion. And then we kind of moved into Gen X and what have you. And I heard my clients say, I can't believe they're only here 2 or 3 months and already they want a promotion. Now, what I'm hearing from all my people, all my clients, and from the employees that I work with too, is by day 3, they've already figured out 4 things you need to do differently in your business. And they expect you to respond to that. Now, sometimes that can create a problem because they have lots and lots and lots of good ideas, like the construction group that I worked with a little while ago that says, we want to encourage good ideas, but I did have to go back and explain that we can't speed up this construction project by leaving the rebar out of the foundation. But see, that's a learning process, I looked at it and I said, he was complaining about it. I thought, at least you got somebody who's interested in helping your business get better. Channel that. And that's really what leadership is all about. It's what it's always been about. The difference today, as Scott said it well, we may not like it, but it is different and we got to get over it. And that is, people today have grown up expecting to have a voice in how they do their jobs. And I think as a leader, I don't have to like it, but I do have to acknowledge, that means I'm going to have to lead differently.
Yeah. So Cheryl, one of the things that you do in your role is you are a certified DISC assessor. Randy also is very heavily involved, experienced, and certified in the DISC assessment process. But one of the things that you do often is take a team of people, and you will do an assessment of all the individuals in that company. And when you do this assessment, it puts everybody into these charts. You see introverts, extroverts, you see some are high D, high I, S, C, different things. And you get this big, long report, and you put this all together into a presentation that you call a debriefing with the client that tells him about his people. How often do people understand their people, and how shocked are they when they can see that you can almost read the minds of individuals you have never met?
Well, before I talk about other companies, I want to express to Scott, thank you for catching my wrong quote. Sorry, Randy.
That's okay.
One of those days. But most of them like, well, yeah, I know my people. And when you start into it and you start telling them, okay, John needs to hear this way. John's communications not working with yours. You're not doing the correct communications, which is not the way you say it. But that's what's going on. You watch these people like, if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have been here. And so I don't use the DISC as the hiring tool, but I do definitely use it extremely for making the company more intermixed with each other. And we're finding out as it goes farther and farther, and I take the owner first, do the debriefing with him, and then start working with the whole company. We make a uniform company and the culture does grow. And I think Randy agrees with that.
Yeah. And I was going to Randy. Randy, what's your thought on this about, do people actually understand the thoughts, the behavior patterns of the people that work for them?
Usually no. And I say that by let me asking you this. Jerry and Cheryl, how long have you all been married?
Somewhere around 22 years.
22 years. All right. And so Cheryl will correct him after we're done. But Jerry, let me ask you, how long did it take you to figure out what you do and don't say with Cheryl?
I'm still learning that one, Randy.
Exactly. My wife and I will be married 34 years in February, and we're all still learning it. Now, here's what I think the DISC profile does for a team. is it helps you short circuit that learning curve. It shortens the learning curve because sooner or later you figure it out, but you have to think about it. You're probably going to mess it up a lot. And so that profile helps you understand how to walk in better. And Cheryl, I'll go ahead and say, I'm using it right now. I've got a client that in the last 6 months, we've almost totally changed this company's leadership team. And part of that interview process is they complete the behavior styles profile along with emotional intelligence and driving forces. And they do an interview with me. And this is for the CFO, the COO, the VP of sales, the VP of marketing, all of those people, because we're looking for fit. And more important, that CEO is saying, if I hire this person, I want to know what's the best way I can get connected with them, because we don't have time. There's so much to do. And I'm sure it's that way in everybody's business. There's so much to do. Anything that I can do to speed that up is money well invested.
Yeah. So Scott, to be a distinctive company, we're talking about the people that are going to come employed with us, but have they got to be distinctive? Do they got to understand the message that their customer needs to hear to engage them for their products and services?
Yeah, absolutely, Jerry. And I think that you've hit on a fundamental challenge is, we what we bring to the market is what we think is important, and that's not always what customers think is important. I don't recall the speaker that said it, but it's the old line about people don't want to buy a drill. What they really want is a hole. But that's not even right completely. It's that they want to be able to hang a picture. Right. And so that's the key. Randy, you might have been the one that said that originally.
It wasn't me. I remember that. I was trying to remember who said it. It sounds like a Bill Gove quote to me.
It really does. Yeah, I come to think of it, I think you're right. And so if I'm selling drills, I can talk about, what kind of motor is in the drill. I could talk about the revolution speed of the bit. I could, there's a myriad of things I could talk about, but that means absolutely nothing to just somebody who wants a picture that looks good on the wall. Right. And so it shows the disconnection between what we tend to be talking about and what customers are really looking for. And so what we've developed is a process and a formula that you walk through point by point that you can use to create distinction. And obviously we don't have time to do it this morning. We're going to be doing it at the upcoming Success Summit, but walking through that process so that people have a very specific approach that they can follow that will take them from the point where they are to being able to stand out and earn more in the marketplace.
Yeah. And Scott, you're dead on the money. And this is the whole thing in a nutshell. If you're listening to us right now, I honestly, truly believe that the two words that these two gentlemen, I attribute to them, Scott with distinction, Randy with culture, is two of the leading things that can solve your hiring issues, your customer acquisition issues, and even pinpoint the person that fits your customer profile. Okay. Let's face it, we're all in business. We can't service everyone. You've got to have a profile of the customer that fits your customer profile. And usually in the home services business, Randy, from your experience, are home service contractors going after the Mercedes-Benz of customers, or are they going after the Walmart customers? Which one do you see when you deal with blue collar home service contractors? Who do they all brag about?
Oh, they all brag about the top of the line customer. But they're, interestingly enough, I've seen a lot of people go after the Mercedes-Benz and treat them like they walked into Walmart. Mm-hmm. So when you said that, I'm thinking like, what do I see on their website or what do I see in practice? Nobody ever says on their website, do business with us if you're feeling lucky. But we all know a whole lot of companies that should. And so that becomes the issue. And I think it goes back to, by the way, I want to take this back to hiring for just a second, because Scott, you said something that really struck me is what connects with customers. I think if we go back to what you said earlier about what connects with employees as well, sometimes the words we use, I mean, so if I went on your Indeed site, if I went on Indeed and looked for your company, what does the ad say? Does it say, you know, journeyman electrician, whatever, you know, must be able to do this? Or does it say something that goes, well, that's interesting, I want to work there? So I'll give you an example. One of our home services clients last year ran an ad that said this. Started off with, are you tired of working around people who don't pull their weight? Want to work for a team doing great work in a growing business that treats people exceptionally well? If this is you, give us a call. Now, what they usually, by the way, they got a lot of applicants go, well, that's interesting, I'll call you. Just like the printed circuit board manufacturing group, you know, they're saying printed circuit board assembly, and there's like thousands of those jobs, but they happened to build a circuit board for SpaceX. So we changed their ad, and their ad led with, want to send a rocket into space? And it goes back to exactly those things that Scott talks about with distinction with customers, is using those exact same principles with your employees. Now, the culture part is you've got to deliver it once they get there.
Yeah. And, you know, guys, this is an idea I had a couple months ago. And I discussed with the people on this call, on this broadcast right now, which was the problems of a home service contractor provider this day and time. And Randy, I believe, or it might have been Scott, came up with and said, we could say it's the best of times, but we could also say it was the worst of times. And I'm not sure which of you gentlemen actually came up that when we were putting it together. It was Randy, okay? Randy said it, then Scott perfected it. Let's put it this way. We put it together, and Scott added his magic touch to it going through. But as we went through there, that was it. And then we started looking, what are those challenges? And how can we help in those challenges? So what we did was put together what we're calling the CVC Home Service Success Summit. It's a virtual event on February the 7th. Now, Scott has been talking today about how you've got to become distinctive. And in that day, Scott, you're going to give them what information on February the 7th of how to be distinctive, Scott?
There's a 4-step process that these businesses need to execute to get there. And I'm going to reveal all 4 of those and give them the specifics of what they need to do to get there. And we're going to review that, and we're going to teach that. And it's, again, when you stand out, you earn more. You earn more profit, but you also earn better employees, and you earn more freedom, right? I mean, I think that's one of the things that's really, really important for these folks is they are so overwhelmed, running around putting out fires, trying to take care of everything, as Randy talked about his dad, you know, practically working themselves into the grave, trying to keep this thing afloat. That's what we're going to be talking about. What does it take to become attractive to customers and attractive to the best employees? And what does it take to stand out in the marketplace so you earn more of what you want?
That's it. And Randy goes back again. The key quote from Randy Pennington: culture always wins. So how are you going to share with people on February the 7th how culture always wins?
Great question, Jerry. And what I'm going to talk about are 5 things you can do right now to either reinforce the culture you have, if it's a good one, or transform the culture that you have into the one that you need if it's really causing you a problem. Now, there's 100 things you could do, but I'm going to focus on the top 5 that work right now, that I'm seeing right now in blue collar, home services, construction, manufacturing. Those are the kind of industries that I've been working with for the last 3 or 4 years. And we're going to focus really heavily on what works right now with that group of people. And by the way, there's two things I'll tease off to you. There's one thing that you have to do at the top, but I'll also tell you that the middle of organizations is where transformation and change goes to die.
Gotcha.
And so that's where we're going to focus on strategies you can do with your supervisors, your leads, your managers, because they've got to carry that water for you.
And these are all implementable. Am I correct? These are things that are
Absolutely.
not tough. They just got to decide to go for it. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Everything that Scott talks about is something I should be doing right now in my business.
Gotcha. So Cheryl,
And vice versa.
you're going to be dealing with how to put the right people on your team. What are you looking for? Let's tell people, what points are you going to hit in your segment of our event?
I'm wanting to work with what it takes to get the right seat, that right people in the right seats, because as Randy said earlier, that's what you have to work with. If you've got people in the wrong spot, you've not accomplished anything. So we're going to fine tune some of those areas, and also how to listen to the people and how to use what you see in that person to communicate with them and make a great distinctive team with a great culture.
Right. So you've heard what 3 of these people that are going to be presenting that day are going to share with you. These are actionable items. These are implementable items. It may take a little bit of change. Now, in addition to what they're sharing, and everybody would agree, it's going to take the systems in the business. So we got the best systems guy that there is in home services, and Al Levy. And Al's going to teach you how to put together your manuals, your SOPs for people to follow. Because I will guarantee you, Randy will tell you, you got to have a plan for people to follow. They're not mind readers, are they, Randy? They're not. Then a lot of people want to scale their business. So what we've got is one of the leading scalers in Tommy Mello from A1 Garage Doors has went from $50,000 in debt on his way to $100 million a year and has a goal of a $1 billion a year garage door business. He's in 24 locations a day. So he's going to share with you how to scale if that's where it's at. It goes down to, does your office work right? Does everything efficient? If you look at it, even in our own businesses, we have to work on our office system. Scott, would you agree there's a constant adaptation where your office can serve your customers the best?
As our mutual friend Nito Cobain says, there are no secrets to success. There are only systems to success. And that's what you're talking about, Jerry.
That's what
the
we're
only
talking
way to get there.
Yeah.
So,
although neither of us can say it and make it sound quite like Nito.
That's so
I hear
true.
you. Well, when you develop High Point University to the degree he has, which is right up the road from me, and Scott, I believe you are a professor emeritus. Is that correct? Is your title?
In residence faculty.
Excuse me, in residence faculty. Okay, so he lives in Las Vegas, but he comes to High Point every once in a while. Drives right past my house. Hasn't stopped yet, but he will one day. But we've got Brandy Biswell. Brandy's a member of our team. And if you want to know somebody that can make your office hum with efficiency, close the jobs, get everything done right, Brandy's your girl. I'm telling you, she is phenomenal what she's going to do. And I'm going to be the last presenter because when you hire people, you got to have a system to take them from novice recruit into an effective and highly efficient and profitable member of your team in record time. So that's our lineup for February the 7th. And you can register at www.cvcsummit.com. And I'm going to make you this guarantee. I am guaranteeing that this will be a value for you. And if you're listening to me right now, if you attend this summit and you do not see value, if you don't get it, I will personally refund your registration fee. That is coming from my bank account to you, but that's my guarantee of the value that you will receive. It's a virtual event. You don't have to travel anywhere. You don't have to make plane reservations. Scott, is that a big advantage to be virtual?
Oh, it's a huge advantage. And Jerry, let me add one more thing that everybody can do, and that is you come to the program, you put it on the screen in your conference room, you bring your management team in, or you bring other, your entire team in. And at so many conferences, because the cost of travel, the cost of the hotel room, the cost of the individual registration, as Randy said so perfectly, the top people go, they get all excited, and then it goes to the middle of the team, and that's where it dies. Because the middle of the team didn't experience from the conference what those that attended did. Well, this solves that problem. You put it on the screen in your conference room, you get your management team, or you can get everybody in your business there for just this short period of time of this program, and you can make a meaningful difference in your organization. So doing this has extraordinary advantages for the owners and leaders of home service businesses.
Right. And in light of that, in order to do this, we've set one registration cost for the entire company. You can even be in separate locations if you have different divisions. One registration at the low cost of $147 for a full 8 hours. And I can tell you, I recently saw where EOS was doing a gathering. It was over $1,700 for their meeting. When you add the travel, Scott, if we were going to Las Vegas or Phoenix or Dallas, where Randy is, number one, let's face it, I'd be paying you guys a whole lot more to travel. Would you agree? Y'all's fees would be a whole lot higher than Scott getting up there, and you're going to be on at 6 a.m. your time that morning, but it would be a whole lot higher. The attendee costs would be higher. You'd have hotels, you'd have airline flights. And a lot of people, Scott, I don't know if you know it or not, they're actually scared to fly today. They don't want to get on the plane because of the mask requirements, the vaccine, or whatever it is.
Cancel flights, right, Randy?
Yeah, canceled flights. We've all spent nights in airports. It's no fun. It's no fun to do that. So we're going to encourage you. I've just put the website name up, and it is cvcsummit.com. It's on February the 7th. We will start at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And yeah, that's early on the West Coast. I understand that. But if Scott McKain can get up at 6 a.m. and be ready to go at 6 a.m., anybody can.
He's just not going to bed, probably.
He's just not going to bed. So, Randy, is there anything else you would share before we cut out of this broadcast today?
The one thing that I would go back to, and I want to go back to what Scott said, this is an event for your entire team. And what I was thinking about, because I live in Dallas, Texas, and some of you might remember in February last year, we had this little snow event in Dallas, Texas. And so, whether it's a snow event or a rain event, you're looking for something to do with your team. And if it's during the winter and you have bad winter weather, you're always looking for something to do with your team. There's only so many floors you can clean up around the warehouse or whatever. This is a wonderful opportunity for you to bring everybody on your team. Go ahead and spend the extra money to get the extra piece of this thing. I forget what that cost, Jerry, but it's $247, which gives you the access to recordings, and we're going to have a follow-up meeting 30 days later. Yeah. So imagine what you go through thin for $247. You get the recordings. There is a month's worth of team meetings right there for your team for $247. You're going to be doing something with them. You might as well be doing something that they can use to specifically improve the business.
Yeah. And Randy, why did you go through that power outage? Because the infrastructure failed in Texas when the storm came in. And that's what we're talking about here, is building your infrastructure up that highest level. So Scott, what about you? Anything you would add to this before we end today's broadcast?
Just that the price, Jerry, is ridiculously low. I cannot imagine why any home service business wouldn't do this. If nothing else, just for the videos that you could use in staff meetings month after month after month. It's unbelievable the value that you're going to get from this. I just one last thing real quick, Jerry, and that is every business owner thinks of ROI, which is, of course, return on investment. What am I going to get from investing this? But I want you to think about what's the ROI, the return on inaction. What if you don't do this? What's the cost of that? That your team is less productive, that you can't attract the right people to work for you, that you don't know how to expand and grow your business. There's a hell of a cost in that. And I think the cost of inaction is much greater than the investment that you make by coming to this. So if you don't do this and your competition does, what happens when they stand out and earn more? What happens when they create the kind of culture that you desire? That's why they need to be there for this program.
Your employees may be marching over to your competitor when they become more distinctive.
Yeah.
Something to think about. Cheryl, what would you add to this? Anything you would add to this for the value of what we're going to do on February the 7th?
Well, we have handpicked the people that we're looking to be in this, and we have some great sponsors that are sponsoring us and helping us through with this. We have a lot of people believing in it. And if you've got the hearts that these guys have and the hearts that our distributors have, I don't understand why anyone will not take the time to work on their business at least one day instead of in it. And just imagine where it could go. I mean, you can start on the 8th, well, the night of the 7th, if you like, and start implementing the things that these guys have told you. And I don't see where anybody would not show.
That's it. And we do want to thank all the sponsors because we are being powered by Service Titan, which is a major sponsor of this. We have Spark Marketer, we have Rock City Media, we have United Infrared, and we have National Chimney that have all stepped up. We would not be able to do this at the cost we are without the sponsorship that they have given us. And why do they do this? Because they believe in what we're doing to help you, the home service provider, move to a higher level to become more successful. And that talks about the culture of those companies and what they're providing to you, their clients. So we appreciate you taking this little bit of time with us today. If you're seeing this live, if you're seeing it on the replay, if you have any questions about this summit, reach out to me. You can see my email address on the screen. I put the website to register is up in the comment bar. And we hope to see you at 9 a.m. on February the 7th. It will be a full day, and I can guarantee you, if you implement what you're going to hear and take action, you're going to be amazed at what you can do. It's like our friend Larry Winget told me yesterday. A lot of times people walk towards progress, but they run from a fire or they run from pain. So, hey, let's pick up the speed. Walk with us as we take you into progress on February the 7th. And with that, we appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time on a future episode of the CVC Success.